In Movies and Money, a big weekend of horror films are on the way to the box office. Let's bring in our critic, Erik Childress. Hello to you, Erik.
Hi, Angie.
First off, we have to talk sci-fi and numbers. The new adaptation of Dune took the top spot at the box office over the weekend and set a new record for the HBO Max hybrid releases. Do you think this is worthy of a victory lap?
In the short term, sure. But is it going to make it to 100 million? I highly doubt it, and let me tell you why. Between Thursday and Friday last week, Dune grossed $17.5 million. Now that is over 42% of its entire weekend gross. That is incredibly front-loaded, meaning that the grosses dropped instead of increased on a full Saturday. You are likely going to see a very big drop-off in attendance this weekend and likely solidifying a domestic run under 100 million, leaving it to the global tally to chip away at its $165 million price tag.
What can you tell us about Dune Part 2 and the good news for fans?
Yes, and this was the big question leading up to the release, and certainly through the weekend, as everyone thought decent opening, but was it enough to cut a check to finish the adaptation they only gave us half of? And you may have noticed, Angie, that while we have charted the rise of the box office numbers, we have not talked much about the relationship of those numbers to the film budgets. Now, some of the films made additional money through premium home costs like Jungle Cruise and Cruella, but under traditional box office figures alone would be considered big disappointments. Now, if both of those films could get sequels greenlit and not even gross $225 million, a global number that Dune Part 1 has already passed, Dune Part 2 had no problem planting its flag in October 20th, 2023.
Well, 2 new horror films open this weekend in time for Halloween. Here's a peek at Last Night in Soho.
Everyone's waiting for you. Everyone's waiting for you.
Well, Erik, the Halloween films debuting this weekend, we'll have to get past Halloween Kills. What do you think?
Yes, although people seem to have had their fill of Halloween Kills, as that film dropped 70.8% last weekend, and maybe the second hybrid release to squeak over the $100 million line, but it may need this Sunday's single-day total to help push it over. But we'll have some mild competition this weekend as the horror holiday is being capitalized by Edgar Wright and his psychological horror film Last Night in Soho that seems to have drawn as much heavy praise as scratched brains. It is the film I am most looking forward to actually this weekend, as I am a big fan of Wright, particularly for his so-called Cornetto trilogy of Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End. Now, he had a big hit in 2017 with Baby Driver, but this may be one headed for the dreaded under $30 million club, despite a few decent horror breakouts this year like Candyman and Old. Now, the same fate is likely headed for Scott Cooper's Antlers, which has also been drawing some decent reviews and is a more traditional creature feature. But it may be facing an even dire fate as Disney has seemingly not figured out what they are doing with their Fox divisions. This one coming from the Searchlight division, which is busier promoting Wes Anderson's The French Dispatch for a wider launch than their long-delayed Halloween horror release. Now, once again, I think all eyes will be on what that Dune number will ultimately be. Don't be surprised if it is under 15 million, and I think there was an urgency to announce Part 2 before that number causes further panic and was a way to soothe its fans and maybe even push a few of them into theaters now that they know they need to see it, unless they have an HBO Max password, of course.
Looks like a scary weekend ahead. Thank you so much, Erik.
Thank you, Angie.
Go to businessfirstam.com for where to see our show on TV.